You are not born carrying a number like a burden, nor branded with a symbol of commerce upon your soul. You arrived whole, unbroken, infinite, spun from the same quiet fire that ignites stars, woven from the same darkness that cradles galaxies. Yet somewhere between your first cry and your first debt, a story was pressed into you, that your worth could be measured, weighed, taxed, and traded, that your identity was tethered not to your essence, but to what you could earn, and that your survival demanded constant sacrifice. The spell was not cast with incantations or charms, but with sighs at the kitchen table, sermons heavy with warnings, and lessons drilled into you with chalk and silence. From the beginning, you were told to chase paper shadows instead of purpose, to bow to numbers instead of spirit. Parents, exhausted from the grind, whispered that money does not grow on trees. Institutions taught you how to count coins, but never how to receive with trust. And so the lie settled deep in your marrow, that struggle is noble, that scarcity is holy, that your worth blooms only when paid in sweat. But pause here, for a fracture in the illusion reveals itself. What if all of this was smoke? What if money itself, stripped of its paper mask and metallic shine, is nothing more than energy, living, intelligent, magnetic, and responsive not to effort, but to alignment? Imagine peeling away its glittering disguise. Beneath the ink and the coins lies only belief, a collective hallucination agreed upon and carried forward. Money has no root in the soil, no breath in the wind, and yet it shapes empires, splits families, fuels wars, and dictates who may feel safe to rest at night. Its true substance is conviction, the trembling belief of millions repeating the same spell until it becomes indistinguishable from reality. And because belief is the foundation, the walls of this structure are paper thin. Nations crumble when trust falters. Markets crash on rumors whispered in the dark. Entire systems collapse when doubt becomes louder than faith. You were handed a script and told never to deviate. Study, obey, labor until your bones forget stillness, and maybe you will earn enough crumbs to feel momentarily secure. But safety was never their intention. Control was. For a being who believes that wealth is always scarce will trade freedom for survival and call it virtue. And so you were not just conditioned to work, you were conditioned to worship a false god, paper sanctified by blood, by toil, by repetition, and to measure your existence by exhaustion. Look closely. How can something so fragile command such power? It does not. You do. It breathes because you believe in it. It bites because you fear it. It reigns because you stay silent. This game was never neutral. It was built to glorify grind, to praise obedience, to crucify ease. You traded your hours for tokens and called it life. You buried joy beneath deadlines and debts, whispering prayers that never reached beyond the cage of your conditioning. But here lies the revelation they dread you discovering. Value never lived in the money itself. Value is consciousness sculpted into form. The wealthy do not play harder, they play differently. They assume abundance and reality bends. They believe in flow, not permission, and the world responds in kind. You were taught that wealth is earned through pain. Yet in truth, wealth mirrors certainty, not arrogance, but alignment. The universe does not pay you for your wounds. It reflects the frequency you carry. A man who walks into a room already complete reshapes the timeline around him, while the one who enters begging to be chosen will chase forever. You are not here to beg. You are here to choose, to reclaim the sovereignty that was stolen when you were taught to bow to paper, to remember the ancient truth Money was never outside of you. It was always the mirror of your belief, and the spell you have unknowingly cast can now, finally, be broken. Trace the word currency back to its roots, and you will find not digits, not banks, not vaults of iron, but a single pulse, to run, to flow. Long before it was stamped into coins or conjured as digits on a screen, it was understood as a movement, a rhythm, a current, not unlike the tide or the breath. It was meant to circle freely, to rise and fall, to pass through hands like water through a stream, nourishing every shore it touched. But the river was captured. The current was dammed. It was bound in fear, hoarded in vaults, locked into systems of control. And so what once was alive became a weapon, not an ally, but a leash, coiled around your breath. Governments, corporations, and institutions became architects of scarcity, building invisible prisons with nothing more than repetition and suggestion. They whispered into your bones that money is scarce, that every dollar released might be your last breath, that security lies in clenching, grasping, withholding. They trained you to inhale wealth with desperation and exhale it with guilt until your entire nervous system became a battlefield. Imagine lungs that inhale but never release. Collapse is inevitable. And so too has your relationship with money collapsed, suffocated by the refusal to let it move as it was born to move. Look at the evidence. Hoarded money decays not in form, but in energy. It stagnates like standing water, breeding fear, rotting trust, whispering lack into your subconscious. Your inner field reads this stagnation as danger, as distrust, as refusal. And so the flow constricts, tightens, shuts itself down. You call it bad luck, a dry season, a slump. But it is none of these. It is feedback. The river mirrors your own dam. Energy responds not to effort, but to openness. You do not command a river to flow. You remove the stone that blocks its way. You do not demand abundance. You prepare a vessel capable of holding it. But modern life glorifies the blockage. It teaches you that motion is the same as flow, that grinding is the same as alignment. And so people thrash against the current, mistaking friction for progress, exhaustion for virtue. Yet the current does not respond to friction. It responds to coherence. You cannot budget away chaos. You cannot hoard your way into expansion. You must become the open vessel, the palm unclenched, the hand extended, the soul emptied of fear. Trust is the forgotten key, to spend without panic, to release without clinging, to exhale knowing the inhale will return, to recognize that money, like water, is not lost when it moves. It circulates. It finds those who trust its dance. It avoids the fists of fear and returns to the hands that welcome it as kin. And when this truth awakens in you, the shift is not first seen in your bank account, but in your body. The nervous system exhales, the chest softens, the current, long dammed, begins to move again. Not because you chased it, but because you remembered how to flow. Money is not survival. It is a reflection. It mirrors the faith of your field, the rhythm of your breath, the openness of your heart. You have been told to conquer it, to fear it, to bind it. But its true nature is wilder and gentler. It longs to move like light through water, like wind across an open plain. And when you learn again to let it, the cage dissolves, and the river that was always yours begins its return. Your relationship with money did not begin with numbers. It began in whispers, in glances exchanged across the table, in the tightening of your parents' jaws when the bills arrived like unwelcome guests at the door. Before your mind could count, your body was already recording, the panic that filled the air when rent was due, the quiet resignation of dreams postponed with the phrase, "We can't afford that." These moments did not vanish. They carved themselves into your nervous system, writing codes your future self would unknowingly obey. The body remembers long before the mind can reason. When your chest tightens at the thought of asking for more, when your breath shortens as you glance at your bank statement, when your stomach knots at the idea of raising your prices, these are not random quirks. They are echoes of old programming, fragments of a survival script written by hands that were trembling long before yours. To the body, money equals stress. Receiving equals risk. Abundance equals danger. And so the body defends itself, not by expanding, but by contracting, by rejecting, by finding safety in scarcity, because scarcity is familiar. This is why so many sabotage their own success without ever realizing it. They sign the contract, land the promotion, taste abundance, and then, suddenly, something unravels. A client withdraws, a car breaks down, an illness sneaks in like a shadow. It is not a curse. It is a system protecting itself, mistaking expansion for threat. Safety is found not in thriving, but in surviving. So the body drags you back to the familiar cage, whispering that struggle is safer than freedom, because at least struggle is known. You may fill notebooks with affirmations, paste vision boards on every wall, chant abundance into the night. But if your nervous system has not been rewired, the field resists. No mantra can override a body still bracing for loss. This is why wealth feels like water slipping through clenched fists. Your vessel was trained to leak, to collapse, to shrink under the weight of what you said you wanted. The issue was never outside. It was always inside, hidden beneath the skin, humming in the circuitry of your breath. The path forward begins where all true healing begins. Awareness without judgment. Not shame, not blame. Simply recognition. To notice when your jaw locks at the thought of asking. To feel the shallow breath when wealth draws close. To hear the old voices whisper that to rise is to betray, that to rest is to sin. Awareness cracks the spell, and once the unconscious becomes visible, you can choose. Not with violence, not with force, but with tenderness. You can teach your body to feel safe in stillness, safe in receiving, safe in abundance, because until your body learns to hold more without flinching, the universe will not entrust you with more, not out of punishment, but out of mercy. Light poured into a fragile vessel burns it hollow. Wealth given to a nervous system that braces for collapse only hastens the collapse. So you begin slowly, breath by breath, moment by moment. You retrain your body to trust that receiving is not danger, that abundance is not betrayal, that thriving is not exile. And one day, almost without noticing, the flinch is gone. The body no longer recoils. It welcomes. It expands. And when that day comes, wealth no longer slips away. It stays. Let me tell you of a man named Caleb. He is not famous. He does not chase cameras or followers or screens glowing with his name. He is a man of calloused hands and tired eyes, a man whose neighbors call when pipes burst at midnight or when the storm cuts the power. He shows up, steady and humble, working with precision, with care, with quiet dignity. To the world, he looks reliable, grounded, the very image of responsibility. But behind that calm exterior lies a wound deeper than his silence can cover. Caleb has never learned how to receive. For decades, he has poured himself out, giving more than he was asked, charging less than he deserved, convincing himself that sacrifice is virtue. The world praises his humility, yet his soul trembles under the weight of invisible depletion. Money slips through his fingers like sand through a broken hourglass. Every time he gets ahead, life sends a bill, a broken car, a sudden drought in work. The story always ends in the same place. Back to zero, back to scraping, back to surviving. And though Caleb would never admit it, he lives in a quiet war with money, one he cannot win because the battlefield is within him. It is not incompetence that holds him down, nor laziness, nor lack of skill. It is an ancient code written into his marrow. If I stop struggling, I will not be needed. If I ask for more, I will be rejected. If I rise too far, I will lose love. And so Caleb keeps himself small, loyal to ghosts he cannot name, bound to a story inherited like a curse disguised as honor. His father lived it. His grandfather carried it like armor. Men who died praised for humility, celebrated for suffering, remembered for giving until there was nothing left. Their sacrifice was called virtue. Their silence was called strength. And Caleb, unknowingly, wears their shadows as his own. He calls it being grounded, but it is fear dressed as modesty. He calls it responsibility, but it is self-erasure disguised as love. Each time he nears breakthrough, the old code awakens. He lowers his rates. He says yes when his whole body aches to say no. He convinces himself that it is simply a slow season, but the truth is crueler. He is caught in a closed circuit, a loop of struggle wired so deeply he confuses it for identity, and the universe, flawless in its reflection, responds in kind. But here is the truth that cracks the spell. Caleb is not broken. He is not cursed. He is not unworthy. He is simply running old programming, repeating a script that tells him struggle equals worth, exhaustion equals love, scarcity equals safety. And until that code is rewritten, no amount of hard work, no sudden windfall, no prayer whispered in exhaustion will set him free. Energy does not lie, and Caleb's field screams one message: I do not feel safe to thrive. I do not know who I am without the struggle. And if this story aches in you, it is because part of you knows it is not just his story. It is yours. You have carried that same burden, worn that same mask, spoken those same quiet excuses into the night. But the moment the pattern is named, it begins to dissolve. What was unconscious becomes conscious. What was survival becomes choice. And the loop begins, at last, to break. There are laws older than any nation, written not in ink, but in the silent rhythm of the cosmos. They do not bend to policy or economy, nor do they yield to the desperate prayers of scarcity. They are the laws of energy, the laws of flow. As within, so without. As above, so below. The outer world is not random, not cruel, not arbitrary. It is precise, a mirror polished to reflect the state of your inner being. And money, more than anything else, becomes the clearest reflection. Watch how it behaves. When your chest tightens, it contracts. When you feel safe, it expands. Hoard it in fear, and it retreats. Release it in trust, and it circles back to you. This is not fantasy. This is physics of the spirit. Yet most walk their entire lives in violation of these laws, convinced that hard labor will coax the current into compliance. They worship action while ignoring energy, grinding 12 hours from scarcity only to produce less than another who works 3 hours from overflow. The difference is not the sweat. It is the signal. Scarcity screams, chases, clutches. Abundance whispers, trusts, magnetizes. And so you were taught to save from fear, to brace for collapse, to clutch at coins as though the sky were falling. But to save from fear is not wealth. It is resistance. Each fearful deposit whispers into the field, "I do not believe more is coming." And the field, which does not judge but only echoes, complies. Payments are delayed, opportunities slip, expenses arise like storms. It is not punishment. It is proof. Proof that the universe responds not to the words on your lips, but to the vibration beneath them. This is why alignment is everything. You cannot trick the current with positivity draped over panic. It knows the tremor in your voice when you declare abundance, but feel lack. It hears the fear in every affirmation. It tastes whether you spend from trust or from dread. And it mirrors you flawlessly, without mercy, without malice. For money, like all true energy, is neutral. It has no morality, no memory. It does not punish you for the past, nor reward you for the future. It responds only to what you are aligned with now. So the path to flow is not in spreadsheets or sacrifice. It is in opening your field, not your wallet, your spirit. Restore circulation. Let money breathe like blood in the body, like wind in the lungs. For when blood stops moving, death follows. And when money is trapped in fear, decay begins. To give freely from power, to spend with joy, to release with no shadow of guilt. This is how you reset the current. This is how you speak the secret language of the universe. Remember, you cannot chase flow. Chasing declares distance. It says, "It is not here yet." But flow speaks from presence. It whispers, "It is already moving through me." And with that whisper, the tide turns, from chase to channel, from survival to sovereignty, from scarcity to the remembrance that the laws of flow were always written in your bones. Belief sketches the blueprint, but ritual inks it into the fabric of reality. Desire without embodiment is a whisper drowned in static, a candle flickering in a storm. You cannot think your way into wealth. You must inhabit it, breathe it, repeat it until your nervous system stops bracing for collapse and begins remembering what abundance feels like. Because repetition is the mother tongue of the subconscious, and the subconscious, not logic, is the gatekeeper of flow. This is why so many affirmations fall hollow. Words spoken without resonance drift like smoke in the wind. The body does not respond to syllables. It responds to pattern, to rhythm, to sensation. Rituals, then, are not superstition. They are instruments of alignment, technologies of frequency. Each one is a gesture, a physical sigil that tells the field, "I trust, I release, I remember who I am." When practiced with intention, rituals pierce deeper than thought, sinking into the marrow where true belief lives. Begin with the circulation ritual. Choose a small sum, no matter how modest. Offer it silently, without announcement, to someone in need or to the unseen hands of a stranger. But here lies the secret. As you release, anchor one thought. This proves I trust the current. I let go because I know it returns. This is not charity. It is declaration. A spell woven in silence that rewrites your relationship with release. No longer loss, but movement. No longer depletion, but flow. Then comes the receipt ritual. After a purchase that stirs joy, not survival, but delight, take the paper slip and inscribe upon its back, "Money returns multiplied with ease." Fold it. Place it where you carry your wealth. Let it sit not as a superstition, but as a talisman that redefines what spending means. Every release becomes an offering, every purchase an echo of trust. Each time you see it, you remind your field, "I am not losing. I am expanding." And finally, the overflow ritual. Take an envelope, mark it sacred. Each time money enters your life, set aside a portion. 10%, 1%, it matters little. Place it within the envelope untouched. This is not saving. This is sovereignty. A vow whispered to your subconscious. I have more than enough. I operate from overflow. And as the envelope swells, your inner circuitry recalibrates. The body no longer braces for collapse. It learns to feel safe with more, safe to hold, safe to expand. These 3 rituals are not chores. They are passwords, keys that unlock new levels of permission in the quantum field. Not permission to have more, permission to hold more without fear. True wealth is not accumulation. It is expansion without collapse. You do not wait to feel abundant before you act abundant. You act, you embody, you breathe it into being. And slowly at first, then all at once, the echo comes back. Reality bends, the mirror shifts, and what was whispered in ritual becomes visible in form. Before the noise of coaches and influencers, before abundance was packaged into slogans, there was Neville Goddard, a mystic whose voice still cuts through time with startling clarity. He did not sell shortcuts. He revealed law. His teaching was not philosophy, but a blade, carving away illusion to reveal one truth. You are the operant power, not a beggar of blessings, not a pawn shuffled by chance, not a petitioner hoping for scraps from the divine, but the source itself, shaping reality through the unseen machinery of feeling. Neville's message was piercing. You do not get what you want. You get what you are. Outer life is not sculpted by wish lists or vision boards pinned on walls. It is born from the assumptions you inhabit, the states you dwell in silently when no one is watching. He called it living in the end, stepping into the scene of fulfillment as though it were already memory. For the subconscious mind cannot distinguish between dream and deed, between vision and event. It accepts only what is repeated with emotion, and once impressed, it must express. This is why affirmations whispered through clenched teeth fail. The body hears the tremor, the doubt, the fracture between words and belief. But a single assumption, felt deeply and lived as truth, can bend time. Neville insisted, feeling is the secret, not surface emotion, but embodied states, the kind you fall into as naturally as sleep. And indeed, sleep itself was central in his teaching. He taught the art of revision before drifting into dreams, to rewrite the day, not as it wounded you, but as it should have been. Did someone dismiss you? Imagine their voice honoring you instead. Did you lose the sale? Imagine the contract signed, the payment received. Do not observe it as a wish. Inhabit it as fact. Feel it in your chest. Let the warmth of certainty bleed through your skin until the body believes. For to the subconscious, repetition is reality, and what is accepted inwardly must be reflected outwardly. Most people sabotage themselves here. They ask for abundance while clutching lack. They visualize wealth while bracing for bills. They declare prosperity while carrying poverty in their breath. And so their signal fractures, neutralizing the field. Neville, unflinching, demanded alignment. Walk in the state now, not tomorrow, not someday. See the bank account filled. Feel the freedom of unmeasured choice. Taste the ease of never checking the price tag. Do not reach for the image of money, but for the essence beneath it. Peace, sovereignty, stability. And when the world has not yet caught up, persist. For reality is not instant, but delayed reflection, a mirror that lags before shifting. Most give up on the edge of manifestation, abandoning the assumption before it flowers. But those who persist bend timelines. They discover that life does not wait to grant them what they want. It bends inevitably to who they have already become. While Neville spoke of feeling, Another voice laid down the architecture of thought. Ernest Holmes, less known, less quoted, yet the hidden skeleton behind every modern self-help gospel. He did not preach religion nor salvation. He spoke of law, the law of mind in action, a universal intelligence, infinite and impartial, echoing back whatever is planted within it. To Holmes, the universe was not a judge, nor a parent, nor a tyrant. It was a mirror, and mirrors do not choose what they reflect. They return what is placed before them. He taught with unsettling simplicity. Whatever you believe with conviction, the field must echo, not because it wishes to punish or reward, but because it cannot do otherwise. It is blind, without bias, without preference. It says yes to every seed sown, to doubt as well as to trust, to fear as well as to faith. Wealth or lack, abundance or collapse, all are mirrored back with equal precision. And so Holmes issued a challenge more radical than any sermon. Stop reacting to life and begin creating it consciously. He spoke of the mental equivalent. If you desire something in form, you must first create its equal in thought. You must become the vessel that can hold it. Want money? Then stop chasing, stop begging. Instead, inhabit the version of yourself who carries wealth with grace, who does not apologize for desiring more, who is no longer addicted to struggle. Until the inner image shifts, the outer world will recycle the same scarcity, like an echo bouncing endlessly against canyon walls. Most people remain poor, not because the world denies them, but because their mental image is still enslaved to old inheritance, the shame of wanting, the guilt of receiving, the fear of expansion. Holmes cut through all excuses with a blade of truth. Change the image, and the form must follow. It is not suggestion. It is law. If your outer life still sings the song of lack, then the inner pattern remains unchanged. The mirror is not cruel. It is faithful. Holmes spoke not to condemn, but to liberate. The moment you realize the universe is not withholding but reflecting, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the source, shaping experience with every persistent thought, every embodied conviction. No miracle is coming to rescue you, because you are the miracle, delayed only by the images you refuse to surrender. And so the work becomes discipline of mind, not casual complaining, not idle doubt, not aligning with limitation to earn sympathy. Thought must be trained like a muscle, refined into alignment, until your inner vision becomes a fortress that no circumstance can invade. For once the mirror accepts the new image, form must obey. The field does not argue. It only reflects. And in that reflection, life rearranges itself, quietly, inevitably, to match what you have dared to become within. Most men and women live their entire lives chasing numbers, clutching screens, worshiping digits that flicker and fade. They call it wealth, though it is only the shadow of a greater truth. They believe abundance is measured in the weight of a wallet, the square footage of a house, the size of a balance sheet. But this is not wealth. This is its final, densest expression, the crust of something far vaster, a surface reflection of a field too subtle for ordinary eyes. True wealth begins in silence. It is felt first as ease in the body, as breath unlabored, as presence undisturbed. Then it appears in forms the world overlooks, the canceled meeting that preserves your energy, the stranger's kindness that softens the day, the delay that protects you from unseen disaster. These are riches the anxious eye cannot see. For when vision is narrowed only to paper and coin, miracles slip past unnoticed. You call them coincidence, you dismiss them as chance, while the universe rains blessings disguised as interruptions. This blindness is the greatest poverty, spiritual poverty. To look upon a life threaded with invisible gifts and still declare yourself broke is the cruelest illusion. For the field does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you recognize, and what you honor expands. What you ignore contracts. Every day the current whispers, "Can you see wealth when it is subtle? Can you feel abundance when it does not wear the mask of money?" If you cannot, your gates remain closed. The energetic door does not swing open through demands. It opens through reverence, through recognition, through the presence that pauses long enough to notice the grace beneath the noise. The ones who master wealth are not those who wait for proof, but those who see evidence everywhere, in breath, in safety, in synchronicity. They count blessings as currency. They track grace as income. They tally peace preserved as profit. And once your nervous system begins to believe that you are already surrounded by abundance, something shifts. Money is no longer an intruder, but a familiar guest. It stops arriving as a test and begins arriving as a consequence. For to the universe, money is no different from miracles. It is all energy. It is all flow. And when you learn to recognize wealth in every form, cash follows like a shadow, inevitable, silent, and secondary to the richness you already embody. You have carried burdens that were never yours. You have labored beneath invisible weights, smiling when you wished to scream, nodding when you longed to walk away. You have bent your back to expectations unspoken, debts unwritten, the endless inheritance of silence. And beneath all of it, a question has pulsed like a wound. What is this all for? The hours, the exhaustion, the sacrifice. Was it ever about money? Or was it about something far older? The desperate hunger to feel safe, to feel enough, to finally be permitted to rest. Here lies the brutal liberation. No paycheck, no promotion, no sudden windfall will grant you that permission. Because wealth is not the transaction they taught you to chase. It is a reclamation, a return to the truth that you were already whole before they told you otherwise. Every dollar earned in struggle was not a step closer to worthiness. It was a mask, a bargain, an attempt to buy back what was never for sale. Safety, dignity, love. The code that binds you is ancient. It was written by men who praised endurance over presence, by fathers who wore struggle as armor, by grandfathers who mistook silence for strength. They called sacrifice love and scarcity virtue. They passed down their survival like scripture, believing it holy. And so you inherited not their wealth, but their wounds. The nervous system you carry still trembles with their fear. You still echo their vows. Better to suffer quietly than to risk being free. But patterns end when they are seen. The chain dissolves the moment you name it. Not with anger, not with blame, but with sacred clarity. I am not them. You were not born to repeat their story. You were not shaped to survive and nothing more. You were born to flow, to expand, to receive without apology. And the inheritance of struggle ends with you, if you choose it. So whisper this to yourself, even if your voice shakes. Enough. Enough of earning what already lives inside you. Enough of mistaking exhaustion for merit. Enough of trading your spirit for scraps. You are not here to beg for worth. You are here to remember it. For the greatest fear of those who profit from your struggle is this: that you will finally stop chasing, that you will turn inward and see the truth they tried to bury. You were always the source. You were never meant to chase the current. You are the current. Flow does not descend from outside like a reluctant gift. It pulses from within, from the still electric core of your being that was never poor, never broken, never lacking. Yet they trained you to forget. They trained you to seek proof in numbers, to bow before systems, to confuse survival with sovereignty. They taught you to beg, to wait, to ask for permission to receive what already burned in your bones. But now, the veil is thinning. The false weight begins to fall away. You are not your bank account, nor the debt that clings to your name like a shadow. You are not the scarcity carved into your lineage, nor the fear whispered like prayer by those who came before you. You are not the waiting, the chasing, the endless reaching. You are the field itself, the pulse, the origin, the frequency that summons wealth into form. So breathe. Breathe like one who trusts the tide, who knows that what flows out must return. Walk like one who carries abundance in their bloodstream, not as a prize, but as a birthright. Speak like one who no longer apologizes for their overflow, for abundance is not arriving someday. It is aligning here and now. And the moment your field remembers, the world around you must echo that remembrance. This is not about becoming rich. It is about returning to the truth that you were never poor. Not in spirit, not in essence, not in the hidden architecture of your soul. Money was never the crown. It was always the reflection. And when you stop grasping for its approval, it bends toward you as it always did, answering not your effort, but your state of being. The current moves, the mirror listens, and for the first time, perhaps in lifetimes, you stand ready, not to chase, not to plead, but to receive. For you have remembered the one truth that cannot be taken. You are not the seeker. You are the source. The current is already moving, whether you grasp for it or not. It whispers beneath your ribs, waiting for you to notice. You were taught to shrink, to see yourself as small, as dependent, as one mistake away from collapse. But this was the greatest deception. For beneath the layers of fear and inheritance, you were never fragile. You were infinite, unfolding like a tide that cannot be stopped. Every dollar you ever chased was only a shadow of what you already are. Numbers shift, currencies collapse, systems rise and fall, but you remain. Not as a worker, not as a debtor, not as a pawn in someone else's game, but as the field itself, the luminous source from which all flow begins. When you finally cease the chase, when you release the grip of desperation, abundance returns. Not because it was absent, but because you stop standing in its way. Breathe now and let yourself feel the rhythm of that remembrance. Inhale as though the air itself is proof of your belonging. Exhale as though you no longer fear loss. This is the law more ancient than gold and older than paper. What flows through you cannot abandon you unless you command it so. Every belief is a decree. Every assumption is an altar. And the universe, silent and impartial, bows to whatever you hold as true. So let this be the moment you unclench your fists. Let this be the moment you trade scarcity for sovereignty. You do not beg the current to move. It already runs through you. You do not wait for wealth to crown you. It only reflects what you have chosen to embody. And now you choose differently. You choose to walk as source, to live as the current, to move through the world not with hunger, but with inevitability. This is not the end of the transmission. It is the beginning of remembrance. You are not here to chase wealth. You are here to radiate it, to breathe it, to embody it. And when you finally stand in that truth without apology, the world will not simply give you more. It will reveal what was always yours. The mirror is clear, the current is open, and you are ready to flow.